Welcome to Books to Boardrooms with Dr. Kiran. Today I have the privilege of having Ms. Suad Merchant. Suad is the brand manager and the marketing and communications at Mashriq Bank. I let Suad introduce herself. So Suad, thanks for coming. Can you just give a little background about yourself and the current role what you're holding?
Sure. Thank you, Kiran. Thanks for having me over. So I'm Suad Merchant. I head the global brand and corporate communications for Mashriq Bank. I have about 18 years of experience in the industry working in brand management. This is spanning across different countries, right from US, Europe, Middle East, Africa, UK, Asia Pacific. And this is spanning across right from the corporate clients to the agency side. So I've worked at an international agency, which is McCann World Group. I've worked at a digital consultancy, knowing more about the UI, UX, and more about the consumers. I've also worked at an IT, within the IT industry, which is being a part of Hewlett-Packard, heading their global marketing. Working on one of the biggest bank mergers in the region, which is for Fab. And currently I work at Mashriq, as I mentioned, heading the brand and corporate communications.
So when you head the brand and corporate communications, what are the key responsibilities as a brand manager or a communications manager you are responsible for?
So I think, as people say, and I would repeat, and I'm sure, brand is the heart and the image of any corporate organization. When you talk about brand, there are so many different facets and aspects that one needs to actually manage. Overall, obviously, from how the brand strategy really aligns to the organization strategy. How do you actually maintain the brand image over a period of time consistently? How do you create the brand love, which is through brand affinity, and keep the consumers engaged? And customer experience as well, which forms a very big part of the brand itself.
So creating a brand itself is a tough part, and when in a market like UAE. So what are some of the key, the latest trends which you see in the market, which helps marketers and the brand managers like you to help create a brand image for any organization?
Kiran, it's a very interesting question that I often get, and I always tell it's brand is not so much about the trends, it's more about getting the basics right. When you look at the market today, every time that we pick up our mobile phone and we want to order, any product, we at least have the option of, getting the options of at least 5 or 6 different brands at a time. And this is, I'm talking only at that instant. Locally, I'm sure there are so many more. Regionally, there are further, and then today also we have access to the international, services, delivery through Amazon Prime in a day's time. So with all of that, I think what's very important is to differentiate your brand. Now, in terms of the tools, like I mentioned, I'm not so fond of that word in terms of the tools and the trends, but I think the core, the basic is in terms of letting people know what's your brand story. What is your brand purpose? And that most of the time helps you connect with the customers, right? So I'll give you an example. Today most people actually look at a brand and the first question that they ask is, does this brand really relate to me? What is in it for me that I get from the brand? Is it the convenience? Is it the promptness, right? Is the brand really green? Are they talking about sustainability? Are they actually helping out the local businesses, right? So what is really the brand's purpose? That needs to be communicated really well. And that again can be done through various ways. One is through brand storytelling. And I think that is the biggest tool, the most important tool rather, that people most of the time forget about. The second thing is that how do you actually reach out to your customers with authenticity and honesty? And I think even if you make a mistake there, like it's obvious today you're talking about so much of customer experience and everything is instant and everyone's competing with each other. The idea is that how you can make a mistake, but honestly just go and say, yes, but we are here to help you. I think that's really important. And the third thing is, how do you emotionally connect with your customers? That with all the digitization that we see, I think that human connection is completely lost. So we need to bring back that human back in the digital, and that's very important.
See, the three things what you told is definitely the key for building the brand. And you talked storytelling or connecting with the customer. So what are the various tools which you use? Because it's not that easy to communicate when people don't have time. They're pretty busy with a lot of other things. So how you ensure that your story reaches the target customer and you are able to show that we are here for you? So what are the tools, or what I'm saying, the mediums which you use to communicate with your customer, especially in this digital world where there's less human interaction, the branches and stuff like that?
So I think one very key word that you used in this question is the target audience. And who is really your target audience? Today, as a part of the bank, our oldest mobile banking customer is 92 years of age. Wow. Right? So it depends on what is your message, who is the audience, and then selecting the channel or the tool that you're talking about. I think we live in an age where everything is about being present and creating a perception and an image on social media. Well, whether it's a boon or a curse, well, that's a topic for another day, I'm sure. But what I would try to emphasize is on that I think, yes, of course, everyone uses social channels. Again, within social itself, which are the channels that you really need to focus on, whether you're using Meta, whether you're using Instagram, whether you're using a TikTok channel. Now, it depends from audiences to audiences. Some people like face-to-face interaction. Again, it depends on the industry that you're in, whether you do have that facility of providing the services at a store or a branch. In terms of customer experience, earlier it used to be about the call centers. Today, it's all about the social media, right? So I would say it's not so much, again, about the emphasis on a certain tool. Of course, social is something that you can definitely use to your advantage in terms of creating the image. And I think it's a very accessible and very convenient, definitely not the most cost-effective today with the increasing prices from every channel. But reaching the right audiences instantly, real time, with relevance, at a particular location, I think you can't ask for anything better. Yeah.
I think so what you told does make a lot of difference, because generally when people say, oh, let's go to social media and then we'll be successful, but they don't even really understand about, as you told, who is your target customer, and trying to understand which customer is where, and then spend wisely. Because again, at one point of time, social media was called the cheapest, but now today it's the most expensive because it is more effective. So coming back to another, again, knowing the target customer, UAE being a small country compared to a lot of other countries, it's 10 million population. I don't know how many are the working population out of that who can hold a bank account. And in such a country, you have more than 52 banks, like some 30 international banks, 20 local banks. So how you differentiate your bank? Because if you look at it, the products from the banks are the same. You get the account, you get the credit cards, you get the overdraft facilities. So the features or the products remain the same. And the differentiation with very less interest rate can be a very small factor which differentiate one bank to another. Is there anything else which will help you to differentiate? Like, for example, you worked in some other banks, now you are in Mashreq Bank. So how you differentiate Mashreq Bank from its competitors?
Sure. I think that's a very interesting question. So I think for the longest time, we as bankers have spoken about digitization, the transformation journey, the investment in digital. But do you as a customer really care about what technology the bank is really using? No. By the end of the day, what are you really bothered about? You care about whether the bank is providing the right service conveniently at the right time, instantly, right? So the fastness, the promptness, and being correct every time, right? With that in mind, I think most of the times people forget that what exactly needs to be communicated. Now, how you asked a question in terms of how do you differentiate? I think what people are looking for by the end of the day is the best customer experience, right? And how do you benchmark what is really the best? When it comes to Mashriq, we are a 55-year-old privately owned bank in the region with a fintech mentality. And what does that really deliver? It delivers the fastness, the promptness. We are nimble, we are agile, and because of that, we can actually deliver the right services to the market at the right time. Mashriq is known in the industry to be having its own first. For years, we were the first bank in the region to actually have the first ATM introduced, the first credit card introduced, the first mobile banking app introduced, right? Fast forward to 2017, which was our 50th year, we actually introduced the first integrated digital bank in the region, which is Mashriq Neo. Subsequently, in 2019, the first digital SME bank in the region. So how the differentiation is not only because we are first, but we know what the customer really wants and we are ahead of the game. And that really makes a difference.
I think the last point what you told that, of course, a lot of places you hear we are number one, it doesn't matter as long as you can appeal to the customer. Now, earlier question you told about you have a customer who is a 92-year-old customer. That's about my second question. I mean, the next question is how you appeal to the various customer category, because you talk about the various generations. So when you have somebody at a 92-year-old banking with you, I'm sure that means most of the multiple generations, Gen Z, millennials, so everyone will be your customer. So how is there any differentiation in terms of appealing to them? So what do you do for that? Because everybody's expectations is different, right?
I think in brand, the one key aspect that one needs to consider is empathy, right? You need to, when you're talking to your audiences, you need to start at the level that they are and then take them to the level that you want to take them to with your brand storytelling. I think we all have seen generations through banking. I often quote this example. It's one of my favorites as far as banking customers are concerned. Remember the days when your grandfather actually was banking with his local bank. I come from Bombay, so I remember going down to the bank branch, sitting in front of the branch manager, having a cup of tea, having a conversation. He knew his kids' names. He pretty much was discussing, okay, this is the place where I have my favorite meal from. So that was more about the relationship building. So the longevity in terms of that relationship, the heritage of the brand itself made a lot of difference in terms of building that relationship and having that banking relationship. Fast forward to the millennial generation, what they actually really care about is the fastness, the promptness, the convenience in terms of the digitization. And the values are very different. So they do care about whether my bank is really going green, my bank is really supporting the local communities out there, right? I think with everything that's happened in the past 3 years, what we've seen is the human interactions are less and less, while the convenience has increased. And because of that, the one key aspect, which is the trust factor, over a period of time is diminishing. The relationships are being lost. So as I mentioned earlier, the need across the generations is to understand what exactly is required, what does customer experience really mean to them, and I think bringing back a little bit of that human element so that there are face-to-face interactions rather than only understanding your customers through a digital app. Yeah.
So I think again, this question leads to my next question in terms of, you talk about the millennials, they look at the speed and the convenience also, and quite a lot of today's generation, if you look at the customer profile, a big chunk of your customer can be millennials and Gen Z, that age group. So when it comes to that, if they don't get what you promise in terms of speed and convenience, that can lead to them to react. Like before, even if you react, only a manager and the customer will know, but today they use social media platforms to react, so that we call the negative reviews. I'm extremely happy with the service, I'm not going to give a positive review, because I expect that this is your job, so I don't give positive reviews, but if there is an issue, I'm definitely going to blow it out. So in these scenarios, somebody look at the reviews, you will find more negative than positive, because that's how, and people believe more negative reviews than positive reviews. So as a brand and communications manager and heading somebody marketing and who are responsible for the brand image, how you handle these negative reviews?
So you call it negative reviews, I call it ranting on social, right? So Kiran, what I would say is that yes, as I mentioned earlier, social media has been a boon or curse. Yes, it's very real time, it's very relevant. Now, when a customer is trying to call you through a call center, or trying to have that message on the bank's social pages or any company's social pages with a negative review, what exactly are they trying to really achieve? They're trying to get your attention, right? This is nothing but how you manage conflict management. There is a person who is obviously wanting something. There's another person who obviously is in a position to negotiate and provide that service. How, firstly, understand exactly why are they doing it. Yes, there must be a reason. Investigate and find out exactly why have they reached that stage of frustration, right? Most of the times I say this a lot because a lot of companies today have started talking about sustainability and ESG, but not many companies are ahead of the curve, right? The one thing that I would say is that being honest in terms of giving the feedback and saying, yes, there has been a mistake, if there has been a mistake, with facts mentioned, I think you'll be surprised how forgiving the audiences can be. Even in terms of when you're talking about sustainability and other issues which have divulged in the last few years on the surface, because the banks and the companies had nothing much to report on profitability. So they spoke about diversity, they spoke about sustainability, they spoke about supporting the community. As I mentioned, not many companies have been made headway in that direction. So it's okay to say that we are just getting started on the journey, and these are humble, but we do remain committed to be consistent, right? So similarly, in terms of the social feedback that you get from your customers, I think most of the time just picking up the call and saying, what exactly is the issue, understanding that and resolving that rather than just having a conversation online really does help.
I think I want to stress this point a little more important. Sure. Just because I've seen in most of or any industry, whether it is restaurant or whether it is hospitality, banking or brands, the most of the time, sometimes, as you told, that the customer is writing a negative review is to gain attention. I think that's a great point. So that means they're looking for an attention, and they just want somebody to at least call them and speak to them, right? So as soon as that is done, I've seen people removing those feedback. But some of the brands don't have time for that. They have an agency doing it or something like that, and they don't respond on time, and that makes the customer more agitated. The second thing you said, yes, brands can do mistakes. So and as long as there's a fact to that, and then you just sort it out, rather than being very defensive and then try to argue with the customer. Absolutely. I think these are some of the key mistakes a lot of people who are handling the social media handles does, and then it just goes out of hand. So thanks for sharing this information. So before I let you go, I just want to ask, because most of the audience are students or professionals who just started their career, they like to know that what it takes to be a successful brand manager. What are the key qualities from your experience? You worked with international brands, you worked in IT, HP, you're working in the banking sector. So you had quite a lot of experience handling different category of product. So based on that, what it takes to be a successful brand manager?
I think you need to be passionate about the subject. And when I say passion, of course, everyone working in their respective fields would say that they are passionate about theirs. But with brand, I think understanding the customers, knowing what's out there, and this is not only through reports and research which has been done by other agencies. Go out there, talk to the customers yourself, find out what's happening, right? And you need to be doing this on a continuous basis, right? It can't be just as a one-off that, okay, I know my customers. But most of the times when I ask this question and the response that I get, who's your target audience? Oh, they're 25 to 45 years of age. They are male, female of certain demographics, and it makes me wonder, it's not one size fits all. You need to understand, as you mentioned earlier, that how do you actually talk across the generations, and that's only when you actually combine the data with your primary findings, which is going out there and knowing people. I think the other thing is that, we as brand marketeers have a very tough job, I must say. When you actually have a film produced, what typically happens is that it's a year-long project at the most. There is a certain style and a vision that the producer really has. And at the end of that project, well, it's a hit or a miss, and then they move on to another project, which will have a different story, maybe the same style, a different vision, right? When it comes to brand, it's very different because you have to be consistent across the years. Yes, of course, you can have your repositioning and you can have your new campaigns, but the company's vision, the core values have to be consistently be communicated. And that's one thing that we as brand marketeers most of the time forget, because there could be a change in management, there could be the macroeconomic environment that is actually impacting us. So how do you keep it relevant? How do you keep it consistent is extremely important. And the last thing that I would say is that if you start on a journey being a brand marketeer, well, think about it as a long-term thing and don't just restrict yourself to brand marketing. For me, I think I had covered various aspects in terms of different functions within brand management, whether it was advertising, whether it's PR and communication, events, sponsorships, digital marketing, social, consumer marketing. What I'm trying to say is that you need to know all those facets which actually make up the brand to actually get there and be good at what you're doing. So yeah, that's what I would like to say.
Thanks a lot. So I think, as I told you, I think the first word what you told about the passion, I think once that happened, then you start getting into the integrities of all these areas. And you summed up by saying that, yeah, you don't become a brand manager by sitting on the top. I think it's like going through, sitting in each of the areas so that you understand how things happen, so that you end up being a successful brand manager.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your time. I know it's a working day, it's a busy day for you, but thanks a lot for sharing your time and sharing this valuable information to my audience. Thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.